a UK without the need for food banks.
That kind of fills me with a little bit of fear, because there is people out there that don't get any sort of support.
That's often what helps us get through difficult times.
Knowing that somebody's got your back and they're going to help you.
Is there a danger of supporting people too much?
There is a danger of that, them becoming too dependent, that they stop kind of teaching people that these hostels are not these horrible places that you come into and you've forgotten about. Putting it into the education system, I think, would make a massive difference. I think that's where it needs to start.
Welcome to the HUBLIFE podcast, and we are joined here today with me and Steph by Carly, who works in supported housing and also acts as a referral agent into our food bank. Welcome.
Hello, hi.
That's the intro's done. Told you it'd be quick. But what I want to do is quickly frame the conversation. And so the vision for Trussell Trust Food Bank, because we are a Trussell Trust Food Bank, when we joined back in 2011 was, and this is what it says, a food bank in every town. That was their vision, for a food bank to be in every town. And a few years ago, they changed their vision to a UK without the need for food banks, which is quite a turnaround in vision. And so what we want to do really is get your thoughts generally on that notion and what you think about it. Is it an achievable goal? Is it a desirable goal? And so we're trying to reduce the amount of need, and yet we're at the record high, even higher than during COVID. Yeah. And so with that as a backdrop, getting your thoughts on the notion of ending the need for food banks, and then talk about maybe through the lens of your residents. Do you call them residents?
Yeah, residents, customers, so whatever they're, yeah.
But before we get into that, perhaps you could explain to me and Steph, because we're not really in the loop with this sort of stuff, just generally what supported housing is.
Okay.
Like just an overview.
So Sanctuary, I think, is one of the third biggest housing providers in the UK. So, and they offer single homelessness. So it's, you know, we have people referred to us from the council, but also they self-refer to us, or we get them referred for other agencies such as the police, the 180 teams, probation. So
to avoid homelessness, it's got to get upstream of homelessness. Yeah. What's that look like in a practical sense then, like from like how then places are staffed? Is that like 24-hour staff or just day staff? Or
so it all depends on what sort of funding you've got in your area. So for the services in Thetford, for example, we have 3 full-time project workers. They are Monday to Friday, then one of them will work every other weekend. And then we have night concierge, so night staff, which is just mainly like looking after the security of the building. But also if, you know, anyone's in crisis, they can kind of reach out, speak to a staff member, and they can support them there as well. So it's all dependent on what area from how many staff you have. So it's dependent. So we're quite lucky, actually. We have a big staffing team in comparison to one of the other services that we work with. So
right. And so then is it just the provision of the housing element of it, or is there sort of more wraparound care with residents as well, or how does it work with you?
So for our services, it is meant to be housing related support, but because people have, you know, trouble accessing other services that are out there that they might not be aware of, we kind of wear many hats, I always say, because if you just give them the housing related support, but they haven't got maybe the life skills to be able to kind of go out there and go to appointments on their own. So
my assumption is then the sort of the residents that are there often have complex needs sometimes, and therefore need maybe support in a variety of different areas, rather than just the housing side of things, and even the social side of things as well. Do you get involved in?
I think we're really good at that in our service, because we can see that, you know, even though it is meant to be housing related support, in order for them to get on into their own accommodation, which is the end goal. It's always the end goal. They come into our service, we build them up, we get them ready to move on into their own accommodation. But in order to get there, we've got to kind of make those small goals so they're able to be able to maintain their accommodation, because we don't want them coming back again. We don't want them, because you see that in a lot of the hostels. I
suppose it's a bit like the same as the food bank vision. You know, we want to help someone on an initial go, or, you know, into the service, and hope we can do things that mean they never have to return. And so it's a similar setup. How long does it take then? I know it's probably different per individual, but is there an average of how long? Because I have no clue.
So we have the rooms that they have, and we do have move on flats, which is independent housing management. So that's if they're further on in the move on journey, we can move them on into their own flats. So that's when they can start off in a room and then we can move them on into the flat. So just so it's not as overwhelming. So we can see that, yeah, they're pretty much there, but they still kind of need us for that little bit of support, and then they can move out into their own accommodation. But how long that journey takes is dependent on the person and how much they engage with the service. So
it's not the limitations of the service. There isn't a bottleneck, perhaps, of...
There isn't. It's meant to be 18 months, which is easier said than done sometimes. Yeah. So we have to then kind of work with that individual. If we see that's not achievable, then that's kind of when we have conversations with our management and say, they're still engaging with the service. They're not quite there. Can we keep them on for that little bit longer?
So... obviously, you are one of our referral agents, so you refer some of your residents on to us for food bank support and help, usually short term. But so your residents and your referral through us is a niche group of people, because obviously food bank referrals come from a wide range of different areas of life. Going back to the new food bank vision, then Trussell's new vision over the last few years of ending the need for food banks in the UK. What do you think of that concept in general?
I think it's going to be tough, really tough, because just to say they're not going to be here anymore, for me, that kind of fills me with a little bit of fear. And because of the people that I work with, I know how dependent they can become on the food banks. And we work with them on budgeting, on making meals. We try and do budget meals with them. We'll do budget plans with them. We'll do journals. We'll try and get them, give them the skills so they can make their money stretch and make it last. But to kind of take that away, it's another thing, another level of support that they've had for such a long time. To kind of take that away from them, I think it'll take a lot of work. Yeah, a lot of work.
To be fair to Trussell, just to make it clear for anyone watching, it's not the case that Trussell wants to just shut food banks down.
Yeah.
It's that they want the need not to be there, or the need to be accommodated through different channels rather than through food provision. Yeah. And so, like you said, that's what we're coming to understand. Like, we've been asking ourselves this question for years, and it's such a big and complex and nuanced topic with loads of jigsaw pieces to it. So you might be aware that Trussell Trust and Joseph Rowntree are doing a campaign called the Guarantee Our Essentials campaign. And it's been in the media. And basically, the long and short of it is that at the moment, a single person's universal credit is £85. But they're saying that it's not enough. It doesn't cut it for just the essentials in life. And that probably because of the cost of living crisis, maybe that was okay, but during the cost of living crisis, it's gone up where £120 would be what they consider to be the level that it should be to guarantee people's essentials. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that specifically. Like, generally, you can talk about it like just in general with the population and the politics of it, that's cool as well. But I'm more interested about your clients, about what you think about that concept with them in mind.
Well, since the cost of living crisis, it's actually stopped people from moving out because they're not passing their affordability checks to be able to move on into their own accommodation. Right. So it isn't enough. That's the long and short of it. There's not enough.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that.
So they have to go for it. So if they get offered social housing, they have to go through a lot of checks. So they have to do affordability checks. With basic universal credits, can pretty much guarantee most of them wouldn't pass.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, isn't it, when you're applying for social housing for the people who might need that help and support, who are on the lowest incomes, when the government funded universal credit doesn't even cover enough to meet them checks. That seems back to front.
Yeah, that's diabolical. That's insane.
And this is and that's the thing, because especially when they're ready to move on. So you've got ones there that are ready to move on, but they can't afford it. They can't afford to move into their own place because the money can't stretch that far. They can't buy the food. We try and go through it with them, step by step, try and see if we know there's anything more that we can do. But if that's all they've got, there's only so far it can stretch. And
so for your clients, and do you think an uplift in universal credit would be like a part of the jigsaw puzzle that would help them not have to use a food bank in the future?
I think increasing their amount of universal credit, standard amount, will start to help. So they'll be able to move on into their own accommodation. So that's the positive. So, if they're on the standard UC and it does increase and they can pass the affordability checks, then great. But it is just a small part of the bigger picture, because I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done in order for them to stop being completely relaxed. The life skills is the one thing that we notice at Sanctuary is the thing that people really struggle with. Things that we think everybody knows how to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the case.
Yeah, and that's sort of our view on it, is that we think, we're coming to this view, is that an uplift in, just having extra money in your hand would help probably a great percentage of the people who come through our doors. And that is the only solution that they need, and that would be they'd never return to us if they had that extra income coming in. But there's a load of people as well where that would be one of the things required for them not to return to us, and maybe some of your clients that's probably the case then. So because you refer into our system, and you're not one of our biggest referral agents by any stretch, but do you think without your service more and more of your clients would be reliant on food banks and returning to food banks more and more often?
Definitely.
Yeah,
that without a doubt, because we say that service is there if you need to use it, but we try and work with them before they get to that point and have conversations with them. So if they was to ask us for to get a voucher so they can go to food bank, that's absolutely fine, but let's have a conversation. What's happened? What's gone wrong? How can we step in and support you, for this to not keep happening? But if people aren't having that support, then they are going to become reliant.
I just wanted to take a minute, while I've got one, to ask you to please subscribe to the channel and click the notifications bell. It only takes a second. Come on, you can do it. Do it. Thanks.
So you clearly offer an invaluable service to a group, in the population, and these group of people who need a multitude of support. And so in your experience, and I know it's only your experience, but does your sector of support and housing, do you think that needs to grow? Is there more demand in the populace who can't access it or don't, and you'd like to?
Yeah, definitely. I think there needs to be more services out there. So it's not just about hostels tend to have, and I don't like to call them hostels, and we do like to call it supported living because they have that stigma, that bad reputation. It's you kind of want people to come in and refer to the service and see what we're all about. And I just feel like I've spent my time, our team, kind of teaching people that these hostels are not these horrible places that you come into and you've forgotten about, because I think that's what a lot of people thought, I don't want to, even people on the streets, no, I don't want to come into a hostel. It's
a negative environment they're going into, worse than their current situation, rather than the helps that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And do you think some of that's just stigma and a misinterpretation of what they do, or do you think the service could do with not just expanding, but would you like to offer, like we've tried to do over the years, is start offering people more and more help and support at different parts? Would you like a more diverse set of helps that you can offer, or is it just the scale?
I think more staff would help that. So this is the problem, is if we had more people within our service, more project workers, then we could have more time to work with everyone, and our services could get bigger, but that takes funding, it takes time. So I think we want our services to grow, but you've got to get the funding for that.
So you'd say the level of support for more additional people, but for the people you have, more additional support for each of them people as well.
Yeah, so you've got 3 project workers at our service in Thetford. We have 30 people when we're full. Right. So each project worker will have 10 people that they key work, which is great. But then that depends on their level of need, how much support they need. Yeah. That's when it becomes difficult, is that you want to spend time with them people, and not just that. So you're giving them one-to-one support, but then you want to do the activities, you want to do, the engagement with all of the customers. So you get them out in, do open support sessions with them. We're doing a group session next week. So you're getting them all together, but it's getting the time to do that when there's only 3.
And I suppose that feels like it's a mile away from food provision, but what you're doing there is building a social network of people, because we all need that, and that's often what helps us get through difficult times, not just financially, but socially as well. So like it's so important that that's done as well. And so if you think that would be of benefit and would perhaps reduce the need from us in the long term if you were funded in a better or different way, because it's my understanding, I'm probably wrong, but is it generally through local authority funding and a mixture of the individual housing benefit as well? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's like a combination of them two things.
Yeah.
And so your wish list, if you like, would be then probably more funding from the local authority, or maybe like centralised funding through government, perhaps, to bolster that service.
Yeah. And the local authority are absolutely great with us, but there's only so much that they can do, so much they can support. You know, they've all had cuts too to their sort of funding, and we're all struggling. So, you know, there's only so much we can expect from them. And so if you've got enough people supporting our residents, then you're teaching them the life skills, and then they're going to carry that on and they're going to pass that down to their kids. And there's a gap. I think there's a gap somewhere where things are really lacking, and life skills. I know I keep saying life skills, but that is the thing that we see is, well, I've got this pasta and I've got this sauce, and
what do I do?
And I've got that. What am I meant to do with this?
Yeah.
And well, you can do this with it, and you can do that with it. Oh, can you?
Well, we've been married nearly 20 years, and you're still like that. I can cut that out. I'm going to cut that out.
You won't. You'll keep that in.
I will keep that in. That'll be the trailer.
But you are bang on, I think, when it comes to things like budgeting and life skills, how how to cook, how to keep a house clean, all that sort of stuff. It isn't necessarily taught, and like you say, that comes from being in maybe a family or your upbringing of how to do that. And so if you've never had that, like you say, that gap is there, then people are going to need that support. And it sounds like that's what you guys do.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If they haven't got that level of support, you've got to think that we work with them, and we have a really good relationship with our residents, and they appreciate the support we give them, and we appreciate everything that they bring to our service as well, because they get involved with absolutely everything that we do. But for them to not have that service and not be out there for people, because there is people out there that don't get any sort of support. And I'll always say to my residents, bring them in, let me have a chat with them. I'll signpost them to who they need to go to, because people don't know where to go. And that's I think that's another thing, is communities need to work together a little bit more, know who each other are, I come in, I introduce myself to everybody, know where I go, just so they know who I am, what I do, who I support, just so we can all start working together. Because I think that's also lacking as well. I
think it's a reflection of just society at large, isn't it? Even the agencies are sort of separate, and our communities are separate, our neighbours are separate from each other as well. We just don't have that culture anymore, and it's like it's so difficult to change culture, isn't it? I like the way you put it about you're trying to get them on their own 2 feet so they're self-sufficient, and you want them to have agency. And I think that's, a lot of people's opinion is that most people should take responsibility for themselves as a person, and not become, like you said, you don't want to become reliant or dependent on food bank or anything. Be that government, be that local authority, be that charity. Is there a danger of supporting people too much? Because that's what the balancing act we're trying to work with, is how much to support people where they don't become dependent and reliant on you, but you're just giving them a hand in the right direction so they get agency and even get a sense of achievement for themselves to drive themselves.
Which is the biggest part of it. I think there is a danger of that, them becoming too dependent, that they stop doing anything for themselves. And it's not because they're out there abusing a service, it's just they don't know how else. They've never been taught any different. So if that's just their way of life, is okay, I know that service is there, I know it's available for me, so why not? I'm going to use it.
Yeah. And that'll only be a certain percentage of your clients. It'll only be a certain percentage of our clients who use our service, but there is a danger to that, isn't there? So I suppose that's Trussell's concern. Is like, we don't want to be here where people are dependent on us. They need to be independent, even with support wherever that comes from, particularly for the essentials in life, as opposed to the additional frilly bits that we just enjoy at our leisure. So that's all, from my point of view, what I wanted to understand your service and your clients. But have you got any thoughts on on-ending food bank need generally? And you don't have to. I like to open it up more about what your thoughts are on any solutions to.
To reduce the need, I think there needs to be more kind of support in the community. So, that's again can be difficult because you've got to make sure that people are aware of it is number one, and that they're going to engage. And that's where I think I'm a bit lucky, is because they're in my service. I put on an event. I'm doing a budgeting session. I invite them all along, entice them with bacon sandwiches and a cup of coffee.
I'd go for bacon sandwiches.
and then they will engage, and they'll sit down and they learn a lot from it. But because they're in the service and they see me all the time, I know they're going to engage in that. So it's getting that out into the community and putting those sessions on, like just basic cooking, like this, how to make a meal. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. The amount of Rustler burger packets in our bins at the minute, I'm like, come on guys, these are expensive. You could batch cook and make absolutely loads of meals.
I think that's really interesting that you said that, because that's something that I've had many conversations with different agencies in the community, particularly in Thetford, that about putting on cooking courses or budgeting courses. But like the issue that I have found is that when you put the name budgeting on it or cooking, because they don't have relationship with people, they don't want to go. But because you've got that relationship, you're able to do that. But what about when that relationship isn't there? How do we help these people without that shame and stigma? And I've even said to you, I'd love to be able to put on, cooking classes, but without that relationship, and like, again, you're key to that, how do we get people to come to them sorts of things? Because
our relationships with clients are much shallower, aren't they?
Yes, and they are.
But we have a few longer term clients that have got very complex needs that we build up rapport and can probably do that with, but it's not the vast majority of people, is it? And so, like, it sounds to me that your focus, because of your experience, is life skills to those who wouldn't otherwise learn it. And so, is your opinion then that should be, if it's not taken up by the family because of whatever reasons, that should be more emphasised within the education system then?
Massively.
And so, like, be a big chunk of,
Yep.
do a little bit less French. I can get on board with that. And
or art.
And so, like, I'm an ex-PE teacher, so like my mindset is they should be doing double PE every day. I think moving your body is really important, but so are these life skills that they do in school, don't they? But it's like,
to an extent,
it's a bolt-on to the side.
Yeah.
Perhaps because it's for the family should be doing this, but if it's not being done to the extent like you're witnessing it, perhaps there does need to be more thought into not just cooking and life skills, but the finances of things.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good with finances, but I was never taught anything at school about finances, and that was a long time ago.
Well, I'm rubbish at finances because I've never been taught anything about it. So that's the way I go. But you're bang on. I mean, I've done food technology and I still can't cook. So it's really interesting that it's like these things aren't necessarily preparing people for life.
Yeah, and so like we said, this is a big ask, isn't it, to try and reduce the need for food bank to the point where it's minimal or nothing. And so, like, I think Trussell were really clear. It was a 5-year sort of goal, but even in their own literature, they say it ain't going to happen in 5 years. It's going to take longer. But we're setting this target to get the ball moving in the right direction, or focusing all the food banks and the Trussell Trust in that direction. But if we're actually going to reach that goal, we need to start downstream of some of the problems, which might mean in primary school, infant school, into secondary school now for 10, 15, 20 years, probably 50 years time, because of that generational sort of transfer of knowledge and life skills. And so, that's not one thing. That's not a thing that I'd actually thought about in great detail. But
oh no, I think that's where it needs to start. And just building up that confidence in them, being able to do those things, and them becoming almost young adults. So they got that confidence, and they know that they can go out there and they'll be able to not just get a great job, but they'll be able to run their own home.
Prepared for life rather than prepared to pass a test.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the more you work with the adults, and then I'm like, hold on a minute, like, how has it got to this point where they kind of survived all these years without having all these, what we think are the basic goods, and it's like, well, why would they? If they've not been brought up in an environment where, you know, they're taught to budget, they're taught to cook, to clean their homes, and you know, maintain, you know, good mental health. How are they able to do these things? You know, how they've been able to survive to get to where they are now. It was, to me, I think, wow, like they've got it. And that just shows how strong they are. You know, so you've got these really resilient people that we work with, you know, that have kind of been through hard times, and they're still up for it. They're still up for learning, and you educating them, and them educating you in some things as well. And, you know, it kind of opens your eyes, especially when you just thought it was this thing. Because I did. I'll be the first one to admit, I just thought, yeah, you know, everyone knows how to do this. No, Collie, I don't know how to change a bed. Yeah. Well, you don't know how to change a bed? Right, okay, let's do it. And and it's just become part of our roles now, is we will bring it into their support sessions and say, you know, how are your life skills? You know, are you able to do these things? Are you able to budget? Do you need our help with that? Are you happy to make phone calls, attend appointments on your own? All these things that people let build up. Yeah,
that's what, like, even like you just said there, are you able to have a conversation on the telephone? Because a lot of people aren't. It's all through text messaging, or they've never had to do that before, or never been, you know, able to engage with, and that sounds silly, but another human being, because they haven't had to. So it's like,
especially the younger and younger generation, I suppose you're seeing that more and more. The social interaction skills with the younger ones are less.
Yeah, we are getting a lot more younger people into our service as well, and that's where we're seeing the biggest gap in life skills is in the younger ones. Having a conversation, just like
making eye contact.
Yes, just talking about things, and, you know, breaking things down into smaller chunks. They want the world, they want everything now, and it's like, that's good, we can get there, but let's set up these little goals, and we'll work together. And that's the thing, having that support, knowing that somebody's got your back and they're going to help you get there, which a lot of people don't have. Giving them that extra little push, not push, but, you know, encouraging them, supporting them, getting them to where they need to be. I try and give that to people who haven't had that before, and just to watch the change in them, to watch them come into our service, and, you know, be scared of what sort of support is going to be like, and, you know, am I able to move into my own accommodation? No, I can't cope, I'll not be able to manage it. And then to see them at that end goal, and just seeing that, I can do this, and they're confident, that's it's just amazing. But it's got to start somewhere. You've got to put in, I think, putting it into the education system, I think, would make a massive difference. Massive. Yeah.
It's great to have your unique perspective on it as well, because the people that you're seeing, just have that vocalised, I think it's great. And maybe, I'm sure teachers probably understand as much as anybody the skill sets that are missing, but probably have their hands tied in what they can provide from higher up. So our little tagline is, something's got to change, but the more and more we talk about it, it's more like lots of things have got to change if we're going to make this a reality.
I think that's bang on.
I think that's a good place to stop. It's been very nice to talk to you, and join us next week, Next Friday for the next episode of the Hub Life podcast. See you then.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Hub Life podcast, then why not check out another one over here, or try something a little different over there.